Excellent, Mark. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm very excited to see you. So definitely let's chime in into your life of a dyslexic, talented director looking for new work in this challenging world in the Czech market, in EU market, in the US market. What I have been talking to you about privately is how much you struggled before when you were hiding that you were dyslexic, how you were afraid that it's going to be perceived in the wrong way. Besides that, of course, recently we had a wave of new conversations around neurodiversity that were not present before that. Even Sir Richard Branson, who's the most popular dyslexic out there, was not that sound on this
I mean, he's calling it a skill now.
a skill. Okay.
Dyslexic
So
thinking is now a skill on LinkedIn. So this is kind of the direction.
excellent. It's just for you to understand, guys out there listening to us. We discussed that today. I'm gonna be asking Mark questions that people are afraid to ask to dyslexic when it comes to interviewing and
Mhm.
recruiting. I will be asking questions like, how do I actually call it? Because I was tiptoeing around it, being afraid because I don't want to hurt the feelings. At the same time, I don't want to show up as arrogant, but I have never been taught. And Google posts and YouTube videos are not the best education if you think about it. If it's you do have to have education around it, and you do have to have a solid source to get your information from there. And knowing that Mark is a great friend of mine and a cool guy who is very open, transparent, and he literally had to have a TED talk around this to show what dyslexia is, what dyslexia is not, and how to rebrand dyslexia, because it did have a bad reputation towards it, and it was full of mysteries and incompetencies and misconceptions. And now Mark, the first time I heard about dyslexia in a way that Mark described it, it was live on TEDx. And I believe that talk was the most inspiring talk I've ever heard on the full TEDx conference.
Thank
Because
you.
when Mark was shouting, "I am Lex," from the scene, from the stage, I was flooded with emotion. I was covered with that wave of energy, and I thought, now this is the historical point in the timeline of civilization when Mark Long stated that we are rebranding dyslexia. And if I can contribute a little bit with that from the perspective of a recruiter, from an agency, I will be very happy. And we were discussing how, if this conversation helps dyslexic talent to understand, to talk about it, or hiring managers, recruiters to understand how to work with extremely talented dyslexic employees, then we have done a historically unforgettable work that was going to
Yeah,
be impactful for the rest of the civilization and human beings,
I hope
right?
so. I hope so.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Definitely.
So we have a disclaimer. We will be absolutely transparent. And the
Yep.
first question is, what is dyslexia? Like, how do you actually define it?
Definitely. Dyslexia is defined as a language processing disorder, essentially. So a lot of people think they know what dyslexia is. It's not a word that we've kind of had floating around, and people have their own perceptions and understandings. A lot of it they think is just, oh, we read everything backwards, or we see everything backwards, or we can't spell and we can't read and all of that. And it's not necessarily true, because a lot of us learn how to recognize the patterns differently, and to perceive the language and understand it in our own way, so that we can basically get to the gist of it. But instead of it being a straight line like typical or non dyslexics do with language, we go around. We go in all different directions, in all different ways, and we develop our own understanding and patterns in order to perceive the language, in order to learn how to read or to recognize letters in these things. And that's why when I am reading or when I'm looking at words, I probably see it completely differently than a lot of other people do. And it is not perfect. I always make mistakes. I can't see misspellings ever. And so I depend a lot on technology. Grammarly has been incredible with this, and ChatGPT has also changed the game for me, compared to when I was in college and work, and I was doing all of my spell check through Microsoft Word, which was a horrible, horrible tool. And so for dyslexia, it really is, for me, it is a unique way of seeing the world and perceiving everything around me, all of the senses, all of the intuitions, and all of these things come together in a unique way. And this is why people say that dyslexics see in 3D, three dimensions. And it's hard for people to understand, how do we see in dimensions? What does that even mean? And it really is, again, we see all the different angles, all the different directions to then comprehend it. And this is what helps us to really excel in, creative thinking, and creative processing, and also with strategy, and what I do, like, doing campaign strategies. And I can see the full forest, like I said in the TEDx. But the problem is that sometimes I don't see the tree in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little bit of that contradiction that happens for me. But my journey happened when I was 6 years old. My dyslexic awareness happened when I was 6 years old, growing up in San Francisco Bay Area, California. And I was not able to do any schoolwork in first grade. It was first
Mm-hmm.
grade. I was failing all spelling tests. I was crumpling my math homework on the bottom of my bag. I was ignoring all of this. I was only interested in pretending and thinking and imagining and climbing trees. And this is what I love. This is what I was all about. But they wanted to hold me back, and they put me into a lot of testing in Berkeley University. And this was in the 90s. So they still thought it was some vision issue or problem. So they were studying my eyes. I was doing these tests where I had to close an eye and read line by line in order to like strengthen my vision in order to cure my dyslexia. But it's actually completely wrong. So from then on, I was homeschooled for about 7 years. I was 5 years behind in terms of my reading level. So my young education was resource classes and tutors and training and all these things. And it was horrible because I didn't have my friends. I was separated from everyone. I just had my, my ADHD mom teaching me at home, which was also a little bit of a disaster, but bless her heart, she really was so supportive during this process.
Mm-hmm.
But um, not only was I separated from my friends, I was in a classroom full of people that I felt like I was different than them. They had other kind of mental disorders or whatever, or handicaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wait, I don't fit in here. And on top of that, all of the people that all my friends, or all the people that I want to connect to, looked at me differently, because they're like, why are you going in this room? Like, what's wrong with you? And this was the beginning of me realizing that I need to hide and to lie about my unique way of thinking. And
Oh.
this lasted up until I did the TEDx, which was the
Oh my God.
first
You
time
you must
publicly.
be kidding me. No freaking Mark.
I said if I was to come out, I have to do it big, because I know that if I was to put it on my LinkedIn or start telling it in interviews, I would never get any jobs or any work. And I have seen, we'll get into this, but I
Mm-hmm.
have seen a lot of issues with this. But this was my way of saying no more. I want to be I want to I want to be transparent. I want to stand up for myself. I want to be honest, and showcase that, yeah, it doesn't have to be a disability. It can be an ability, but I need to look at the bad and the good of dyslexia and combine those together in order to excel my strengths and be more communicative with the people around me.
Hmm. Wow. Mark, I cannot believe that you were hiding it so long, that you were, keeping quiet. I hope that you told your wife before you got married that you were
Of
dyslexic.
course, yeah. She learned over time, and this was also a process because my wife Teresa was super supportive, and we founded I Am Lex together. She's the one that was pushing me and challenging me. I was working in an agency in Prague, and I was reading this great book, which is called Pitch Anything. And in it, it's just talking about how, these great presentations that you can make and get your point through. And for a second, she looks at me and she says, "You should do one on dyslexia. Like, you should do an 8-minute pitch to your office out of the blue saying, this is who you are and this is how it's going to be." And I was like, no,
No way.
no way, never, 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 never. But 2 years later, actually, yeah, 2 years later, I was on stage with TEDx and it was like, this is my moment. This is my time to say, that we are not defined by our reading and spelling, and we're bigger and better than that. But it's about us being open, and it's about other people being open, and us having these conversations like we're having now.
Hmm.
And what I see is when there's truth and there's transparency, there can be growth and there can be progression to change. And I think that's what's important.
Hmm. Hmm. I can see that. Wow, Mark, I'm so shocked how all of your life you had to actually weigh your way through, not mentioning the very core of who you are, the very way you are thinking about the world. And it's so incredibly stupid, in my opinion, that, and I'm like, we are absolutely honest and brutal. I do not sometimes choose words wisely. But I do believe that it's stupid to make people hide their most incredible thinking patterns and talents, because it's truly what dyslexics can think about and of is not even, it's not even possible to think in the mind of a non-neurodivergent person. It's just, it's not accessible to us. It's like having a Ferrari or a car that has abilities of a Ferrari, but because you're afraid to stand out, you always hide that your car has this amazing capability, and you never use it, or you use it secretly. You don't really showcase it, or you don't really leverage the full potential. And
Mm.
I believe that the fault or the responsibility is on the side of those who are rejecting people who are, you know, being brave enough and saying, I'm dyslexic, but I'm doing my great job. You see my portfolio, right? The fault is on those who are rejecting people just simply out of misunderstanding or some kind of other prejudice that is based on a lie about neurodiversity. So I'm very, very sorry that it was the case, but I'm very happy that we have today the conversation. Um,
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
could you tell me more about your brutal job searching experience? Because up till now, right now, I do know that you have gained a job that where people do know that you're dyslexic, and it's your first in the lifetime, in your lifetime job where people are aware that you're dyslexic and you are open about it and you're proud about it. Well, not proud, but like, you feel comfortable in the environment. You
Yeah.
don't have to lie,
It's
hide.
it's it's pride. Yeah, I'm proud. I'm now proud
Mm-hmm.
about it. But yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that, kind of going back to what you're saying, I think that it's a lot of fear when it comes from the other side, because neurodiversity is a scary word. And not only that, it's more difficult to spell than dyslexia. So that's another little point. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was um, the journey has been interesting, and I think that the project that I got after the TEDx, because once the TEDx happened, I said, okay, I'm going to be putting this all over. I'm gonna put it in my bio, my heading on LinkedIn, my resume, that I actually contribute, or I attribute a lot of my abilities because of my dyslexic thinking, because of my unique way and unique perspective. So I was actually able to get a great project through an agency in San Francisco called Goodby
Mm-hmm.
Silverstein and Partners. And prior to that, I was watching a master class that they did, and Rich Silverstein was opening up about his dyslexia, and I didn't know this. He was talking about, he's a designer, and he said, kind of how I work and what benefits me is because I'm dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
And they are all about supporting dyslexics and neurodivergence, because this whole phenomenon of diversity, equality, and inclusion is not only sexual orientation, it's not only religion or skin color or race, but it's also about the brain. It's about the uniqueness, the difference of the neurological thinking and structures. So for them, they take it to the next level where it's like, we value dyslexics, we value these people. And I've never felt more supported in a project. They would be following up with me on a weekly basis. Do you have everything? Are you comfortable? And it was beautiful because I thought that didn't exist. I thought that um, that wasn't possible.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's rare though. It's rare. It's what I'm finding now is that I don't always get that reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been some unfortunate situations. Like I had one in Prague, and I was interviewing for an agency. I won't name names. And
I will.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it was a very unusual setup anyways, but I kind of was sitting in the room. It was their video room, so it was really bad light, spotlight on my head, and a group of 6 people sitting around me and just like asking all these questions. And I finally was like, okay, I am Lex, and my initiative is not only to spread awareness or shift the paradigm or to, educate and enlighten future leaders, but it's also for me to showcase my skill. It's my case study. It's my way of showcasing what I can do, what I'm capable of, and getting people excited about that. And so I talked about it, and the minute I talked about it, this lady that was sitting there just scoffed, stood up, and walked out. And I thought, like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? But what was brilliant is that there was a guy in the room that just slowly raised his hand, and he's like, I also have dyslexia. And everybody in the room was looking at this guy like, what? They had no idea, kind of shocked. And I thought, you know what? Regardless of this woman kind of making me feel bad about being open about it, I actually liberated a person that probably was also hiding like me, to say, yeah, I have this as well, and I'm going to be proud of it as well. And I thought that, and they were like, oh, we're going to do a test project with you and we'll follow up. And they ghosted me. They never wrote me back. And I even knew the lady who was the HR. And she never wrote me back. I wrote her, I said, hey, like, I don't understand, it's a really unfortunate situation. And they just ghosted me. And so I know that I'm going to run into those situations, but I know that I'm planting a seed in their minds so that next time someone comes in has dyslexia, or they are dealing with their colleague, that they will think twice, and
Mm-hmm.
they will think double that, and eventually they'll see and they'll recognize that it can be an importance, it can be
Mm-hmm.
something great. And so I think this is kind of my journey, and this is my way of testing the
Mm-hmm.
environment. And I think that, and all in all, it only is going to bring progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, only that. And I'm very happy that that agency did not proceed with you because you have found a place that is truly supportive. And could I ask you what specific care and support did you receive from your current employer?
So currently, I'm actually currently actively looking for employment. So I don't have a project or an agency that I'm working with directly, or I don't have an official employer at this moment. But I had actually a really great interaction and situation that happened recently, where I was applying for a job in Publicis Group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I worked there previously before the pandemic. And so I linked up with a new manager of strategy, head of strategy, and he had no idea I had dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't, I don't always disclose it. This is a thing. I did a post about this, how there are situations where I don't necessarily feel 100% comfortable yet. I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be like super open where it's like no matter the situation, no matter what, I always talk about it. But there are moments where the fear still kicks in. The anxiety that I'm not going to be, that they're going to instantly think like, oh, gosh, this is going to cost us so much money. And, dyslexia is so scary. And, he's just going to screw up on headlines and all this kind of stuff. Sure, I sometimes do. I put champagne instead of campaign sometimes, but now with technology and and asking for proofreading, which I think everybody does, even if you don't have dyslexia, there's ways around that. So in this situation, I had a nice interview. We were talking about all the projects and everything I was working on. I mentioned I did a TEDx, and after we talked, he said, "What was your TEDx about?" And so that was like, okay, if someone's going to ask me, and this is my opportunity to educate and to open up, I did. So I told him about the subject. I told him how it led me to the project with Goodby Silverstein. And he was so impressed. He was so like open and very like just genuinely interested, and saw I saw that he could see it being beneficial. He could see that this is kind of where the world is coming to, where you need to have these unique these people who think uniquely or have a different perspective.
Well, of
um
course. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And Deloitte actually had some statistics that they released. I think this is 2021, how companies actually have 30% um, like better outcomes and more success with neurodivergent people in the team. Companies make more money and have better brand image, and there's so many like positive benefits to it. But I think that again, it comes down to the misconceptions,
Mm-hmm.
the fear, the judgment, the
Mm-hmm.
pre understanding, or they think that they already know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's hope that this is going to manifest into something, and in the meantime, we're also trying to take I am Lex to a different level, and do things a little bit more differently when it comes to awareness, by creating purpose products that can spark people's interests or understanding that are beneficial for the community, or linking with other businesses or companies to help them with their corporate social responsibility. And so I'm actively looking for these things, just pushing the boundary, meeting people. Every week I'm talking to a new dyslexic person or neurodivergent person, just to share thoughts and inspirations, and it's been great. And I know that there's going to be difficult situations, and I know that there's going to be moments where I will be challenged, but this is what I set myself out to be doing, going
Mm-hmm.
on TEDx, opening about it. It's like, bring it on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. But I'm still curious around about the interviewing. So let's say I am a recruiter, and I would like to understand if a person who I think is dyslexic but hides about it or has fears, and the fears are absolutely, they have the grounds, right? We heard your story so far, and I really would like to understand how can I make it comfortable, and how can I make sure that I am open to dyslexia. But I can't say to every candidate, oh, I'm open to dyslexia, that they're like, all right, then so what, right? It's
Yeah.
just a tool, it takes time, and I'm seeing around 6 people on daily basis, so it's quite challenging. Well, let's see. I'm thinking that the person may be dyslexic. Maybe there are some typos in the CV. Maybe there is some kind of to creativity that is outstanding. I'm like, okay, how did you come up with it? And the person may be asking, or maybe saying, well, I have special vision or 3D idea mindset or something, and I'm like, okay, there can be something. So how could I proceed with making sure that the person feels comfortable sharing it, that the one is dyslexic?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think the first thing to understand is that the majority of us, even if we're tested, even if we're challenged, even if you were to ask us straight out, which I know that now with all the regulations and GDPR and all this stuff, like you really can't. But even if you were to, I believe that the majority of us would stay hidden and would not open about it because it is really a fear and an anxiety and a something that we struggle with every day. It's this imposter syndrome. We feel like we're not good enough for anything, and we've lived our lives with these kind of challenges and this anxiety. And so I think that you will probably majority of the time people will not open up about it. But what you can do first and foremost is what you're doing now, which is you're educating yourself. You're educating and understanding what are the signs, what are the cues that this person may be neurodivergent, what are the things that how you can see past that, how you can recognize that. And I like the whole idea with the CV. I've been wanting to do something around this where, like, basically when you see a CV with misspellings, like there's a high chance that that is a neurodivergent person. There's a real high chance. Maybe not always, but there's a high chance. So that's one thing you can do, is really educate yourself, understand the signs. The second thing that you can do is you can be very open about it from your side. You can talk about it. You can say, hey, talking about the benefits, talking about what you are offering within your recruiting service, how saying like that you are really helping and supporting, that you are contributing and supporting to neurodivergence within the process, and how diversity, equality, inclusion is super important and super high value for you. So you can already warm up the conversation by showcasing that this is a safe environment, and you can say it or you cannot say it, but you already putting out the benefits and how you recognize this being a strength is not only for people who are not, that aren't dyslexic or non-neurodivergent, that it's already a benefit for you, because it's like you are showing your open mind, you're showing your real acceptance of different ways of people of thinking, and with that comfortable, safe environment, it's giving them the opportunity to open up more about it, indirectly. So it's not,
Mm-hmm.
you're not asking them, are you neurodivergent, but you say, hey, like, you can give a story, or you can say, you can talk about me. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I'm all about too, is you can even mention, you can say, hey, like, because most of the time you probably are maybe telling them a little bit about your process and whatnot. So this is kind of a good opportunity when you're speaking about what you do or your benefits or what you're offering in terms of a recruiting service, how this is a high priority, for what you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Understood. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. And I was thinking of, saying, if it's a creative campaign, I would say, oh, have you seen this amazing work of that is done by this artist? And he's dyslexic, by the way. I do believe that this is the type of talent that we are seeking for, and we definitely need to cherish. What do you believe about? Have you seen that campaign? And to open up a person through a story, I'm always opening up a person through like
Mhm.
about any job through a story, apparently, because I'm saying, oh, this is very challenging to do cold calls, and the team is demotivated. It's February, nobody gets bonuses paid in April because we already see that we cannot close a target, and you're a team leader. From our perspective, it also happens in our department, and blah 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 blah. You say, yeah, you open up through compassion,
Yeah.
through vulnerability, giving a sneak peek into the. It's kind of a question, an open end question, where you can take the story to any direction. You can say, yes, I've seen that campaign about this that is done by dyslexic designers. It's amazing, and stay quiet. Or you can say, oh, by the way, I'm also dyslexic. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to prime the ground to
Yeah.
open up
Yeah.
to continue.
I think that's really great. Yeah. And I think that with Richard Branson, with this campaign that he's doing about with LinkedIn, how now they are including dyslexic thinking as being a strength and a skill. I think that this is also, in the world of recruiters and companies and in general, I think this is a real great way to also opening up the conversation and yeah, their storytelling. Hey, I mean, this is a lot of what my TEDx was about. Is it's all about the storytelling. It's all about making that environment and opening that conversation. But again, you may not get you may not have anybody say that, but that seed is planted in their mind and it
Yeah.
makes them comfortable. And you may see it later
Mm-hmm.
or whatnot. But yeah, I think that's a really important. I think that's the easiest way and the safest way to really to make that conversation possible.
I'm I just had an idea to put dyslexic thinking as a skill filter in my search. So let's
Yeah.
see, Prague. Let's see how many people put dyslexic thinking as their skill, clearing all other industries or any other searches. So I'm literally having only Prague, Czechia, and dyslexic thinking advanced search. Let's find it. Um, Search zero, zero spotlight. Okay, let's do it because I'm doing it inside of projects of accountants. Maybe it's still having something, but I will find it. I will find the
You know,
person.
it's I think in Europe or
Mm-hmm.
Czech Republic, I think it still hasn't really caught on yet. It's going to take a while.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what I'm doing in terms of looking for projects as well as I'm also looking for, like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing searches for, venture capitalists or, head of strategy or advertising, marketing, and adding the skill of dyslexic thinking. I feel like the entrepreneurs and the VCs are the ones that are putting it more so on their profiles.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it took me years to be comfortable enough to be open about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know a lot. I know a lot of dyslexic people, but I don't know a lot of them that are as open as I am. But that's why I'm putting myself in the vulnerability. That's why I'm putting myself out there. And like every time it freaks me out. It scares me. And every time I think, I'm going to write them, I'm going to say this, I'm going to be open about it, they're going to look at it. And I just think that immediately they're going to judge me and they're going to throw it in the trash. This is just me. This is my
Mm-hmm.
mind. But at the same time, I'm thinking, you know what? But that is a challenge. I'm challenging myself. And that's the only thing that I can do because if I don't challenge myself, nothing will get done.
Oh yeah, absolutely agree with that, Mark. What would you advise to young career seekers who have dyslexic thinking, who are dyslexic, in the beginning of the interviews? Because the shock or the anxiety is enormous. To be honest, after your TED talk, we went to after party, and there were a group of students, and one of the girls showed up and said, "Yeah, I like your talk," and I especially like Mark's talk. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing! I am Lex, yay!" And she's like, "I'm actually Lex." I'm like, "Oh, you have dyslexia?" She's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And you're at university, you have a hard time right now, aren't you? And she said, yeah, Speechify and Grammarly. Grammarly are my salvations, but still there's a lot that I'm afraid. I'm always afraid of these little mistakes. I'm always asking for help. My parents always review and edit proof my work. And for her being in psychology department, reading and trying to spell all those extreme jargons and vocabulary, it's like climbing Mount Everest every single day.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
would be your advice to that girl?
Yeah. It's the real world. The real world, you're once you leave school, you do not have that support anymore. Like I was very supported. UNIP was extremely supportive with my dyslexia. High school, sure, I had to get past that. I had to go into a resource class, and all my friends were like, what the heck is
Unip.
that? Or yeah, there you go. And like they're saying, the R word was thrown around a lot with the kids that were going to resource classes. But we still had it. We still had that support. We had that extra time. But when you have a boss and when you're in the working world, there is no support. There is no help. There is no understanding. It's all about cost management, and time management. It's all about that. And so yeah, I mean, I feel for her because I know that process and I know that anxiety. And so I think that the first thing that I had to do, and I encourage everyone to do, is you need to really learn about yourself and what dyslexia is and how it impacts you, to really just give that time, that effort and energy to educate yourself. Because even me living with it for so long, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about it until I started I Am Lex, until I started thinking, hey, I can't spell dyslexia, so we need to, shorten it just like we do with everything else, to open up the conversation and
Mhm,
start with a new topic that people are like, what is Lex? I don't even
mhm,
understand. Tell me about it.
mhm,
It's already starting a conversation so that they can be like, oh yeah, oh well, I know what dyslexia is, but what you're talking about is completely different than what I remember
mhm,
it, and what
mhm,
this outdated kind of research has been
mhm,
telling us. So I think first and foremost is you need to really educate yourself and understand how it impacts you and how you can better communicate to your
mhm,
employers about what you need, because we all have different needs. For me, the biggest need was for more transparent communication. So for me to tell them, like, they give me a task and I don't know how to do it, but for me, I just want to say yes to everything because I don't want to disappoint anybody. But then it gets me into trouble. But if I was more open about it, saying, hey, I actually, I have dyslexia, and this, I'm not really sure how to do this project necessarily, and it's a little bit out of my scope. And I think that opens up the subject and the transparency to make me feel more comfortable, to make the employers feel more comfortable, your bosses, managers, hopefully. I think it also, I'm hoping that it puts some safety between the two. But I know a lot of people that have been fired and told that it has to do with their dyslexia, and because they're freelancers, there's nothing they can do. There's no legality to that. There's nothing that can be said. They can make you redundant, and you can't combat that. It's not the United States where everybody sues everybody.
mhm,
But so first, yeah, educate. Second thing is, don't be afraid to be yourself and to be open, because the main thing that I've learned is that it's more important that you fit, that you feel comfortable and fit in the job, than if they think you fit in the job. Because if there's this
mhm,
clash, it's
mhm,
not going to
mhm,
work.
mhm,
If
mhm,
they can't respect or understand who you are and what you have, then it's not the right place for you. Even if it's your dream job, even if you think it's great, in the reality, the grass is always greener. And when you're in it and you're with these kind of toxic environment people who are judgmental or don't respect or understand neurodiversity, then that's not the place for you. So if you're open about it in the beginning, as comfortable as you are to be open, I'm not saying you have to put it on your resume and you don't have to say in your first interview, but why not? Why not? Because you know what? There, 5 in 25 people has dyslexia. More so are
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been times where I open about it and the person that I'm talking to is like, yeah, me too. Or my brother has it, or my mom has it, or, I have ADHD, or, this or that.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be surprised how open people are and how important it is that it fits together, that the two, it's a two-way street, and that the two elements are linked up. Because if they're not, it's not going to be good. It's not going to turn out good.
Absolutely. And this is generally a great advice for everybody. If you feel like that you have to hide a part of yourself right now during the interview processes, I guarantee you will not feel comfortable at that work, and this is going to take 80% of your life. You will
Yep.
sacrifice the time with your family, children, friends for this role. You will actually dedicate your life to a company to make even more cash out on you. And
Yep.
so of course there's we can go into discussion about corporate or freelance, etc. But if it is your work and if these are the people who are going to be surrounding you, then you have to hide something even right now. That's not a great sign. Please
Yep.
say it out loud, just practice it. You have nothing to lose. I'm promising you, just like Mark was saying. There was an interview where he was absolutely not supported for speaking up about dyslexia, and then sometime later he found an agency where he receives full support and full understanding, full care, and your dyslexic thinking is valued as the most precious asset when it comes to creativity. So I really am afraid that, if you were silent at that Czech agency during the interview, that you actually could get a job and you would miss out on this amazing opportunity in San Francisco.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. I think that it's the path that you're going down. Sometimes the path that you should be going is the scariest path. And it's going to be full of it's going to be full of windy roads and obstacles and danger, but it makes you stronger. And and there are cases like, I most of my career in advertising and marketing was being hidden, was being closeted, let's say. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same kind of thing. And uh, I think that, sure, I took it on me, the anxiety, the stress, the pressure. But at the same time, it did challenge me. It did push me. Um, like I feel like someone would write an email or a presentation and maybe they would read it over a couple times. I would read it over like 20 times. And so but in that process of rereading and reworking, it actually was boosting my skill and my abilities, because I didn't do the pitch once or work on the deck once, but I worked on it like, quadruple the amount of times, and that helped me to excel and perfect my skills and my abilities. So I have to I there is a part of me that has to say that I'm thankful. I know it's odd, strange. I am thankful for the challenge that I put on myself, but I don't think it was 100% necessary. And one of my first jobs here in Prague that I got fired from, and they even mentioned my dyslexia in the termination. Um, I was too afraid to say it. I was too afraid. And when I was confronted with it, I took the choice to deny it. And that is a big mistake. That was a big mistake. But at the same time, we make mistakes,
Hmm.
and the mistakes make us stronger. And I learned from that. And that's why when I meet somebody who's dyslexic, or I meet anybody and it comes up, I'm open about it, because, you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know who you're going to inspire. And I think that's the most important thing, is to be true to yourself, but you have to get there on your own time, in your own way.
Hmm. Absolutely agree with that. So to wrap up, it's a long journey for sure to arrive to the confidence and actually speak up about something that most people are judging. And I am so grateful that I met you, because I am a person who is a connector by nature, and I'm meeting a lot of people on a daily basis. And I do have an eye right now for dyslexic thinking. Actually, when I see a typo, I don't have that prejudice like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what a moron, like who could do that mistake? And I'm getting excited, like, is it possible that this person is dyslexic,
Love
or it's
that.
just a
Love
typo?
that. Yeah. It's like, are you dyslexic? Like, yeah, it's the
Please.
golden ticket.
Yeah, I am on a hunt right now.
Love
Um,
that.
and now when people are speaking up without, before I did not have that interest to actually dive deep into understanding the person, the life of a person, because I know that going through interviews, it should be one of the easiest skills that every person should have. In fact, it's one of the hardest skills that everybody has go through, and it's challenging and stressful for everyone. Even I, as a recruiter right now, if I'm gonna apply for a new role, I'm gonna be nervous. I'm gonna be scared. I'm gonna feel like I'm judged, and I am judged. It's literally the interview is to see if you're good or not, if you're gonna be rejected or approved. It's insane pressure on mental health, and I cannot even start imagining how it is when you're afraid to show your full potential, exactly
Mm-hmm.
as you are, who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to hide the golden ability, the most amazing part of you that makes you you, simply out of fear that you're going to be rejected out of that reason. And I'm really happy that we have began this conversation. I'm sure this is one of those several series on dyslexia. I'm trying to figure out how I, from my side, can support you, Mark, and just Lex movement, let's say, um, in regards to interviewing processes, recruiting processes, how to speak to HRs, how to find, how to mind for inclusivity campaigns, how to establish or how to ask her to promote and be proactive at your current employer, saying that we've got to have inclusivity program. We don't have it. Let's have it. And if it's definitely, I'm tremendously happy because the conversation has begun and my life has been changed.
I
And
love that.
I'm definitely supporting you in everything that you do, and I'm telling everybody about this creative mind, an absolute genius, Mark Francis Long, a friend of mine who is dyslexic and has this incredible movement, I Am Lex. And I'm telling this to every hiring manager I have, to every HR I have, to every big agency that I meet. Because being a wingman is, or wingwoman at this point, is the greatest honor for me when it comes to I Am Lex movement.
Thank you. I love that. I appreciate that. Like I was saying, I'm really proud of you as well. Just being open, just challenging yourself, educating yourself, talking to people, being accepting, and um, challenging yourself. Like I love that. I really appreciate that. And I wish that all recruiters could be like you. I wish everyone had the same mindset as you, because if they did, their world would be such better place. There would be way better companies, way better inclusivity, way better diversity and acceptance of this, because it's really important. And just how I ended the TEDx by saying, don't judge a book by its cover, or a resume because they're having a misspelling, because you never know, it might be the next world changer. it might be the next Steve Jobs or Richard Branson, or like any of these amazing people that have created such incredible inventions and innovations and have led the world. And if you can look past that and you can see that maybe a misspelling is actually going to be a perfect candidate that could really push the limit, then I applaud that. I love that. And it just makes me feel like there's going to be hope. There's hope for the future. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your time, the
Thank
conversation.
you too. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.